Hey, it's Avi, and today I'm showing you how basic chord progressions work. We're gonna keep it simple, no fuss, no muss, maybe the tiniest bits of fuss. But we're gonna try and keep the muss to a minimum. No muss, not allowing it. None. Chord progressions are an integral part to music, just in general. When we're writing music, it's really important for us to find the chords that are going to fit the vibe that we're going for, that we're feeling out. The first thing that we need to understand when talking about chord progressions are scales and keys. Let's dive into this a little bit more in the computer. First off, a scale is a series of notes played in a specific order which gives it a certain character. Now, the major scale is a great starting point. This is often where you'll start as a music theory student as well. Let's create a quick major scale right over here. So now I have this bar selected here. I'm just going to type in the letters right there on the keyboard. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Just like that. Let's hear that back so we can get it in our ears a little bit. Now, another very common scale is the minor scale. Now let's build that right now. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Except what we're going to do here is going to bring it down the octave. Now, a melody will use a scale or a key as a kind of roadmap for what notes it can and can't utilize. So for example, if we were talking about Ode to Joy, let's get rid of this. Let's build a little Ode to Joy right here. So when we're playing Ode to Joy, we're going to use the notes in the C major scale. So as you can see, we're in C major, and C was really when we felt at home here at the end. A key refers to all of the pitch material that is available in a specific scale. When thinking about keys, we're talking about both melody and harmony here. Speaking of harmony, in order to actually do that, all we need to do is to build triads from the notes in the scale. In order to do that, we need to stack every other note. Now, when you stack a note on top of a note that's two steps away, that's called a third. So that third is just being played simultaneously. And I can create a third in Sibelius here literally just by typing 3. So I'm just hitting 3. That C went to added an E there on top, right? So I'm adding the interval on top of the note right there. And since now that I'm on an E again, I need to stack another third to add another note. So C, E, and now we have G. C, E, G are the notes in a C major triad. And we can do the exact same thing on all of these other notes. We're gonna skip the note in front of it, right? So D, no E, and we're just going to F. And in Sibelius here, I just need to hit the 3, which is really great, honestly, because it allows you to get the idea of what a third is and looks like. You're seeing the number 3, you're pressing it, and you're seeing how it works, right? So let's keep going. Let's build the triads. Perfect. Let's see how the major scale sounds, and then we'll build the minor scale triads as well. So those are basic harmonies. It may have sounded a little bit funky, and that's primarily because we haven't applied any voice leading or anything like that to it. Or functional harmony, we just played the triads in order. Let's do the exact same thing to the minor scale here. That's it. Let's hear these. We can use these scales and keys as a kind of roadmap or guideline of the kind of music we want to write that's in our head, or the vibe we're going for a little bit more intentionally. For example, if you want to start on a bright note, try a major chord or a major key. But if you're looking for something darker, try a minor chord or a minor key. So now we know on everything we essentially need to in order to dive into chord progressions proper, which is the perfect segue into functional harmony. See that? See how that works? Yeah. When we put together different chords and play them in a specific sequence, we're using functional harmony. Remember how we built those triads from the scale degrees? Well, each of those scale degrees has a function attached to it when it's used harmonically, when the chord built from that scale degree is used. These functions are the same in every iteration of the major scale or minor scale, right? It's just plug and play. It's the same as those scales, as opposed to changing if you're in C major as opposed to D major. It's not like that. Now, the combination and order of the chords is how we can create or establish a sense of tonic or a sense of a key, and how we can obfuscate it, right? We can create tension and we can create resolution and even toy with the expectations of that path. So let's go over each function and talk about how that would work within an actual chord progression in real music. First is the tonic. This is our first scale degree, also known as our one chord. If you've ever seen Roman numerals when talking about harmony, talking about, a one chord, a two chord, a three chord, that's what we're talking about here. This is where we're going to feel most at home in our key. We're probably going to start on the one chord and are most likely going to end on the one chord as well. We can essentially use this one chord before or after any other key in the scale. Functionally. There are some restrictions based on genre and style, but we're not going to worry about that in this video. Note that if you're in a major key, the tonic or the one chord is always going to be major, and if you're in a minor key, the tonic or the one chord will always be minor. Now, we've already heard what this one chord sounds like. It just creates the quality of the chord that it is. So for example, let's just make that a whole note for a hot sec. We just hang out on this C major. On its own, that doesn't quite do as much. And that's why we have these other functions to help create these different sources of tension and release, so that we don't have this one place to go. That's our tonic. Next, let's talk about the supertonic. Now, this is going to be our second scale degree and our two chord. Now, in a major key, the two chord is a minor chord, like this. In C major, this is a D minor. In a minor key, however, the two chord is a diminished chord, as you can see over here. Right? B, D, F, that's a B diminished chord. And diminished chord has a very strong upwards trajectory. Now, the supertonic is great for setting up melodic resolutions to 1 and is a great substitute for 4, prepping for 5. Let's take a classic progression from the classical period. Okay, all right, starting to sound a little bit more like music now, right? Next is the mediant. Now, this is the chord built off of this third scale degree, and we would call this a 3 chord. In major, the 3 chord is also minor. And in minor, the 3 chord is major, right? Now, the mediant shares 2 chord tones with the tonic, right? And a chord tone is any pitch that is within a chord itself. So because it shares these 2 chord tones with the tonic, we can sort of use the mediant to either prolong the tonic section of a chord progression or even replace the tonic entirely in basically any circumstance we want. You can really play with that sense of resolution utilizing the darkness and the brightness of these 2 chord qualities. Let's take a look at a chord progression that's using the 3 chord or the mediant, both prolonging the tonic and as a substitution for it. And this chord progression is 1, 3, 1, 5, 3. Notice how we didn't get the same sense of resolution from 5 to 1, but there was some resolution. It just felt like we were let down a little bit. Next is the subdominant. This is the chord that's built off of the 4th scale degree, or our 4 chord. It's major in major and minor in minor. Major scale, that's an F major, and then in minor here, we have a D minor. The subdominant often acts as a kind of preparation for the movement to the dominant, but it can also be used as a resolution to 1 in its own right. Like this classic progression, 1, 4, 5, 1. That's just everywhere. Now we can also use it as just 1, 4, 1. This is also called the Amen cadence. Next is the dominant, which is the chord built off of the 5th scale degree, or our 5 chord. In a major key, the dominant is also a major chord, and in a minor key, it's a minor chord. Now, sometimes in minor, the 5 chord, the dominant, is also a major chord. And this is something called harmonic minor. We'll swing back to that a little bit later. The dominant has lots of tension and is often the focal point for many cadences, which is a structural significant resolution. So here are the 4 basic cadences. The first is called the perfect cadences. This is when 5 moves to 1. Now, if anything is moving to 5, that's called a half cadence. Now, like we talked about before, 4 moving to 1 is called a plagal cadence. Finally, moving from 5 to 6 is called a deceptive cadence. So that was the dominant. Next is the submediant. This is the chord that's built off of our 6th scale degree, or the 6th chord. The 6th chord is minor in a major key and major in a minor key. The submediant, like the mediant, can also prolong the tonic or act as a substitute for it for the same exact reason. It shares 2 chord tones with it. This substitution for the tonic is actually what's at the heart of the deceptive cadence. The implication being that we were expecting 1, which is usually bright, but we got 6, which was darker, and is close to the dominant, so it has this real sort of falling yet rising effect at the same time, which is really pleasing. Let's take a look at a chord progression that uses this deceptive cadence. Finally, we have the 7th scale degree, the chord based off of the 7th scale degree, or our 7 chord. The 7 chord will have a different name based on whether you're in major or minor. In major, it's called the leading tone, but in minor, it's called the subtonic. Now, in a major key, the 7 chord is diminished, but in a minor key, the 7th chord is major. It's that half step between 7 and 1 that creates this pull upwards to the tonic from the leading tone, which is why it's called the leading tone. It leads us to the tonic. The 7th scale degree is also used as the 3rd in the dominant, which is why it has that really powerful tension feel in relation to the tonic. But in minor, there is no half step between 7 and 1. It's actually a whole step. So in order to create that harmonic pull towards 1, they'll raise the 7th in a minor scale so they can create that harmonic tension. Hence the word harmonic minor. 7 diminished will almost always move to 1, and for that reason, it can be used well as a dominant substitute. So let's take this chord progression, for example. Right, you can really hear that big pull from 7 to 1. Okay, that's it. That's not too bad. A solid understanding of functional harmony is fundamental in being able to utilize and understand more advanced concepts. For example, techniques like modal borrowing, which is when we borrow chords from other scales and keys. We can go further and instead of just borrowing, full-on modulate to other keys, where we can use cadences to both pivot to and establish them. Or one of my favorite things is to use what I call relational harmony. And this is when we justify the movement from one chord to another solely based on its intervallic relationship, the distance one is from another, rather than its function in a specific scale or key. But I want to save this more advanced stuff for another video. I'm going to keep things a little bit simpler here. In this final part of the video, I want to talk about how most of us actually write chord progressions, and how you can apply these fundamentals in harmony into your writing process in a productive way. So let's talk about applying music theory when following your ear. When we're writing, we're normally following our ear, not thinking about chord patterns and cadences. But even just knowing functional harmony will help you solve compositional writing problems that come up. This is a natural part of the process. These rules, music theory, functional harmony, they're not there to just follow blindly, which is often the assumption. They exist because they existed already in practice. It's literally just a bunch of words and terms a bunch of white European dudes came up with in order to talk about specific musical things. That's all it is. It's really not a big deal. It's about recognizing and internalizing them and how they sound so you can know and feel what you're doing on a deeper level. Or just because you want to. Honestly, even just from a personal preference standpoint, I think you should continue to follow your ear. Keep doing things the way you've been doing them in that sense. It allows you to retain the mystery of writing music rather than just going, that's the formula I'm using, duh. It's not fun. Even if you wind up using standard chord progressions like 1-4-5-1 or 1-5-6-4-1, you'll have gotten there on your own. You wouldn't have just set out a formula and made your art fit into it. The formula happened as a natural and organic process in your expression. That's very different. You're not just following a template, but knowing when and how the templates function will help you understand when you're doing something different and why. Also, totally fine to just pick a progression out almost at random and see if it fits your mood. That is a completely valid way to write. Those progressions are classics for a reason. It can be really easy, expressive, emotive, like it works. The point is, it's you that's writing and you that's using these tools. Now you just know what they are and how they're often used. Let me tell you a story about how you can use this stuff practically in your writing process. Say you're looking for the next chord in your song, but your ear just isn't leading you there. Normally the answer is trial and error. Sometimes we get lucky and we find that next chord fast. Other times it takes a while or doesn't happen at all. But if you know functional harmony, you can figure out what you're already doing, and by definition, you'll also know what you're not doing. Boom! You instantly have a ton of options for what you can do, and you already have a pretty okay idea of how they're gonna sound. Now, instead of just shots in the dark, you can take educated guesses and get on with your project far more quickly. Imagine the possibilities that open up when you master those other more advanced concepts we were just talking about a little bit. Yeah, really cool, really fun stuff. Theory knowledge like this, it's not supposed to limit your creativity. We've all heard that phrase before, that learning music theory limits your creativity. We all know that one person that said that, and they're wrong because they're not applying it correctly. Theory is kind of like a painter's palette of what's musically out there. When we instinctively know what color we want to use, it's there to see plainly. And when we don't, we can consult the palette for ideas on what we can do to spark our inner ear again. The whole idea behind music theory and using it as a songwriter or a composer is so we can write without being colorblind, or stop painting in the dark. There you have it. That's how chord progressions work and how you can use them in your writing process. First, we talked about scales, keys, and how to build triads. Then we talked about how each scale degree, when you create a triad out of it, has a specific function when used as a chord. Finally, we talked about why you should just follow your ear when writing music, as you always have, and use this knowledge as a way to solve compositional problems that come up, so you know what your options are and can take some educated guesses. Now that you have a solid understanding of functional harmony, you're probably itching to start writing some chord progression and using this stuff, right? Yeah, I know, I get it. Well, on top of harmony, we also need to have melody. And if you want your melodies to be the best they can be, check out my free guide, 7 Ways to Write a More Effective Melody. Each tip is actionable and designed to help you make your melodies stand out. Head to justwritemusic.com to grab my free gift to you. There's a link down in the doobly-doo. Thanks so much for watching and for hanging out with me today. What's your current process for writing chord progressions or writing music? Does it involve theory or functional harmony in any way? Let me know down below in a comment. Thanks again, I'm Avi, and don't forget to be awesome.